EWS,
the Overnight Underground Podcast. Now the headlines. The Sunday Pandemic Soundbite Showdown. Woo-hoo! The Queen addresses the Realm and Boris heads for the hospital.
How sickening can you get?
Stocks continue their wild ride. The headless leaf blower of New York, and lockdown is leading to a hedonistic overload.
Time to kick back, drink some beers, and smoke some weed.
I'm John Ford, and here's today's Overnight Underground News. An interview between Chris Wallace of Fox News and the Surgeon General over the weekend is generating a lot of Twitter outrage. It seems that Dr. Adams stated that smoking will kill more people than coronavirus in response to a question over a potential federal lockdown. Wallace, however, called out the doctor on what he believed was false equivalence.
But Dr. Adams, there's a big difference between opioids and cigarettes, which are something that people decide to use or not to use, and the coronavirus, which people catch. It's not an individual choice.
Chris Wallace on Fox News. Now, just imagine if stupidity was contagious. Actually, I'm not sure it isn't.
Thank you for playing. Should we or should we not follow the advice of the galactically stupid?
Speaking of the Surgeon General, he issued a pretty harsh warning about this coming week during the daily coronavirus Trump rally, press conference. He said it will be, quote, the hardest and the saddest week of most American lives. He also said this on NBC's Meet the Press.
The next week is going to be our Pearl Harbor moment. It's going to be our 9/11 moment. It's going to be the hardest moment for many Americans in their entire lives. And we really need to understand that if we want to flatten that curve and get through to the other side, everyone needs to do their part.
Needless to say, this also generated a lot of Twitter outrage. Because I think on Twitter, everyone just hangs around waiting for something to be offended or outraged over. Twitter has become essentially an outrage machine.
This is, my friends, an outrage!
Everyone is offended, hurt, and outraged. Still, with all the outrage and in general stupid shit happening in and around Trump's coronavirus conferences, the president did show some optimism over our current state of inactive affairs.
We see light at the end of the tunnel. Things are happening. Things are happening. We're starting to see light at the end of the tunnel.
Let's just hope that the light Trump sees at the end of the tunnel isn't a train. Meanwhile, Dr. Fauci, the first coronavirus expert to get his very own bobblehead, said this in regard to the light and said tunnel.
That this is probably going to be a really bad week. That is a reflection of what happened 2.5 weeks ago. So if we start seeing now a flattening or a stabilization of cases, what you're hearing about potential light at the end of the tunnel doesn't take away from the fact that tomorrow, the next day, it's going to look really bad.
That was bobblehead Fauci. Over the weekend, the White House also told Americans that you should probably stop doing the one thing we were told was still okay, going to the grocery store. I tell you what, as soon as Congress and the executive branch start going without food, I'll stop going to the store. Meanwhile, across the pond, Prime Minister Boris Johnson, who is suffering from the scourge known as COVID-19, was admitted to the hospital Sunday night. According to those in the government in the UK who are not infected with the plague, he's okay. He was just admitted for tests, although the mop-top Prime Minister is said to be on oxygen.
Bring out your dead!
According to one government official, he is, quote, doing well, and is expected to return to Downing Street shortly. Still, it makes you wonder just who exactly is running the UK animal farm. The Queen took time from her busy schedule of lounging around Windsor Castle to issue a rare special address speech regarding the worldwide coronavirus pandemic. It's only the 5th time that Her Majesty has made a special address to the nation. The BBC reports the address was watched by nearly 24 million viewers.
Together we are tackling this disease, and I want to reassure you that if we remain united and resolute, then we will overcome it. I hope in the years to come, everyone will be able to take pride in how they responded to this challenge. And those who come after us will say the Britons of this generation were as strong as any.
You know, say what you will about the old bird, at least she doesn't use her mic time to talk up her ratings. If you can't keep up with the markets, you're not the only one. This morning, stocks opened bigly, 10% higher and around 1,000 points on the exchange. Dow, Raytheon, and JP Morgan Chase were all up. Industrials, financials, and some retail stocks also rose. Some of you may die, but at least the money is safe for now. Have you seen the pictures of the hospital workers wearing trash bags because they ran out of surgical gowns? Yeah, there's a reason for that. According to ProPublica, a U.S. firm had to recall 9 million gowns because the Chinese firm that manufactured them didn't sterilize them properly.
I'm broke too.
Come on, you're kidding. Substandard Chinese imports? No way. I'm shocked. Shocked, I tell you. In somewhat related news, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo announced over the weekend that the Chinese, those magnanimous Chinese, are sending 1,000 ventilators to New York. Let's hope those work.
Chinese government is going to facilitate a donation of 1,000 ventilators that will come into JFK today.
New York Governor Andrew Cuomo from his Friday rally, press conference. Finally, some good news to come out of the coronavirus nightmare. One upstate New York town has banned motorized leaf blowers. Sleepy Hollow officials have lost their heads over the possibility of having things blown into the air causing a hazmat situation. Personally, I'm behind any ordinance, logical or not, to permanently ban any use of Mexican bagpipes. Meanwhile, down the shore in Rumson, New Jersey, a Pink Floyd cover band was busted by the cops for performing an impromptu concert on someone's front lawn. NJ.com reports that the concert, attended by about 30 middle-aged adults, was busted by the cops, who had warned the normally law-abiding citizens about such congregations. The Popo were met with verbal taunts from the crowd, which included "Fuck the police" and "Welcome to Nazi Germany" from the Pink Floyd Love and Peanut Gallery. You know, we're talking Rumson here, not Jersey City or even Elizabeth. The median property value of a home in Rumson is just over $1 million. Ain't America great?
You have chosen a profession in which many great Americans have rotted away their youth.
One of the latest victims of coronavirus in Jerusalem is the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. The church closed its doors just a few days ago. It was the first time the church had been shut down since 1394. When the Black Plague forced it to close its doors. The real question is, since the church hasn't shut down in over 670 years, is there anybody around who remembers where the keys are? Are you ready to read the most brilliant thing ever today? You should. The Australian newspaper Daily Telegraph received a complaint letter from the Chinese Consul General over a recent article critical of China and its handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. The Telegraph decided to respond to the Chinese complaint line by line, and it is brilliant. For example, from China, the origins of the virus is still undetermined, and the World Health Organization has named the novel coronavirus COVID-19. The Telegram's response: the World Health Organization also appointed Zimbabwean murderer Robert Mugabe as its goodwill ambassador, and declared on March 2nd that the stigma of coronavirus is more dangerous than the virus itself. That's fair dinkum, mate. Never pick a fight with anyone who buys ink by the barrel or exports crap by the shipload. Or is that shitload? The link to the article is available on today's Overnight Underground webpage at overnightunderground.com. You know, the statistics are pretty clear. Coronavirus may not kill you, but you will probably end up fat, drunk, and lazy.
Fat, drunk, and stupid is no way to go through life, son.
As the lockdown continues across America and most of the world, shut-ins may be giving into vices that could even be more deadly in the long run than the virus itself. According to an article on Axios, booze and weed sales are soaring. Porn consumption is spiking, and most of us are eating more and exercising less. Experts say, those expert assholes again, that they believe all this vice could take a huge physical and psychological toll on the socially distanced. You have to wonder, though, when all this is over and people do go back to work, how are they going to cope without booze, weed, and porn on the job, now that they've gotten used to it while working? Maybe they won't. And finally, our non-coronavirus story of the day. According to an article in the LA Times, Mr. Rogers used to fart at really boring events just to make his wife laugh. Joanne Rogers explained that because of her husband's fame, they were constantly being invited to boring events. According to Joanne, he'd let one rip just to break up the boredom. She told the Times, quote, "He would just raise one cheek and he would look at me and smile." Just for clarity, the Overnight Underground only included this story so we could play those perpetually amusing fart noises.
N-E-W-S.
A mostly correct and occasionally incomplete transcript and links to reference sources and articles of this Overnight Underground can be found at overnightunderground.com.